Hello, weirdos. It's Thursday. My name is Sarah, and I am joined by...
I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Chris.
And this podcast is for weirdos.
Hey, what are we doing today?
We're talking about MKUltra.
Oh,
Sarah! I want to use all your names, but I won't. Armand. I hate you.
I told you guys yesterday that it was going to be a little bit of a fucking bummer today.
How dare you do this to us after what happened
I
earlier?
didn't know, okay? I had this topic before we did that, and I didn't know that that's what was going to happen to us. So I apologize.
I guess later is going to be a fucking trip too now.
Okay, so I will say I learned a lot about MKUltra doing this research.
sick.
And the reason why this came up as like maybe a topic was Chris talking about Project... Oh, fuck.
Stargate?
One of them. Maybe Stargate. Is Stargate the one that's... I don't remember. I didn't write it down
don't
on my notes.
remember.
It's the one that is about doing like remote viewing stuff. That project.
I think it's Stargate.
because
Project
that is
Stargate?
like tangentially related to stuff that was not even found, stuff that was assumed during MKUltra. A lot of shit from MKUltra kind of like, well, we're not going to do that anymore, but we're going to do this now, and that's kind of what the remote viewing exercises kind of came from. Oh my god.
We ate too much
We ate too much
Whataburger.
food, and I'm going to be like weird burpy and hiccupy, and I'm very sorry. So, I have from an article that was written for the History Channel, so it's not like the best, but I like the way that this like first bit is worded.
Sure.
So I'm just reading you word for word from this History Channel article
Great.
about like the beginning of this program, and then we're gonna get more into like less flowery language, and we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of what the CIA did to people.
Cool.
Great.
On April 10th, 1953, Allen Dulles, the newly appointed director of the CIA, delivered a speech to a gathering of Princeton alumni. Though the event itself was mundane, global tensions were running high. The Korean War was coming to an end, and earlier that week, New York Times had published a startling story asserting that American POWs returning from the country may have been converted by communist brainwashers.
Oh.
Some GIs were confessing to war crimes, like carrying out germ warfare against the communists, a charge that the USA categorically denied.
Did you say, germ?
Germ warfare against communists. Others were reportedly so brainwashed that they refused to return to the United States at all.
Wow.
Dulles had just become the first civilian director of an agency growing more powerful by the day, and the speech provided an early glimpse into his priorities for the CIA. Quote, "In the past few years, we have become accustomed to hearing much about the battle for men's minds, the war of ideologies. I wonder, however, whether we clearly perceive the magnitude of the problem, whether we realize how sinister the battle for men's minds has become in Soviet hands. We might call it, in its new form, brain warfare." End quote. Dulles proceeded to describe the Soviet brain perversion techniques as effective but abhorrent and nefarious. He gestured to the American prisoners of war returning from Korea, shells of the men they once were, parroting the communist propaganda they had heard cycled for weeks on end. He expressed fears and uncertainty. Were they using chemical agents, hypnosis, something else entirely? Quote, "We in the West are somewhat handicapped in brain warfare. This sort of non-consensual experiment," he would say that was the end of the quote. "This sort of non-consensual experiment, even on one's enemies, was antithetical to American values," Dulles insisted, as well as antithetical to what should be human values. 3 days later, he approved beginning MKUltra, a top-secret CIA program for covert use of biological and chemical materials. American values made for good rhetoric, but Dulles had grand plans for the CIA Cold War agenda.
You know,
Is this the same Dulles that the airport is named
I
after?
think so.
I think so.
Oh God. That is
So that's the
special.
like sinister start to this topic.
Yeah.
Woo.
He
So-
like goes to Princeton and he gives this speech about like we really need to like figure out what's going on with this like brain warfare. They shouldn't be testing it like this. It's bad.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, can we get started on that MKUltra thing? Can we do that in the
start
background? Can we get started on that?
shit? So, this brain warfare seems very of the times.
Right, it's 53.
Right. It's 53. But also, in 2025, I feel like we're seeing some of the same things that they were reporting from soldiers who are coming back. We're seeing these big groups of people who are brainwashed into believing X, Y, and Z.
I think the only difference is now the people who are brainwashed are just stupid and not being drugged.
Yeah, they're not being drugged.
They're just stupid.
Well, and
Yeah.
also, while we are sending people overseas, we're not in active war status the way we were in the Cold War.
Right. I'm more talking civilian.
No, I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying, but I'm saying we aren't sending people. We're not. It's not a POW situation where they're
Correct.
Yeah.
like, yes, people are being exposed to external ideologies, and one could say that brainwashing is occurring in other ways through like social media or whatever. But I think a lot of it has to do also with like Sarah said, education level or willingness to
Right.
interpret
There's nothing
truth.
covert about what's going on right now.
Everything
Yeah,
is
in this
overt.
country. There is nothing
it is very
covert.
overt. Yeah,
This,
agreed.
to me, what's going on right now is just people believing everything they read on the internet.
Yeah,
Not in a good way. Like I'm not
Right.
saying that like it's okay. I'm saying it is bad that it
Yeah.
is happening, but this is so much more sinister
yes.
than what's happening now. What is happening now is it is sinister, but it is not. We're gonna get into it
Okay.
because we're gonna get into it. Okay, so this is broken down kind of not in a great way. Organizing these notes was the hardest challenge I think I've ever had of breaking down some notes. So I literally am just using the headings from Wikipedia because that felt like the best way to do it.
Great.
So we have goals and leadership.
Okay.
So the project was headed by Sidney Gottlieb, but began on the order of director Alan Dulles on April 13th, 1953. So this Gottlieb guy is the guy who's, we're going to say Gottlieb. I don't know how to say it, and I don't like him. He's a bad person. So if I say his name wrong, oh well.
Oh well.
He's the guy who's actually like heading it up, but Dulles, as the director of the CIA, was like, let's do it. Let's do this thing. We've kind of been talking about something along these lines for a minute. Let's actually do it.
Yeah.
So the aim was to develop mind-controlling drugs for use against the Soviet bloc in response to alleged Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean use of mind control techniques on United States prisoners of war during the Korean War. So this was in response to something that we don't even know if it was actually going on.
Yeah.
We have no proof that it was happening.
Right.
So the CIA wanted to use similar methods on their own captives and was interested in manipulating foreign leaders with such techniques, devising several schemes to drug Fidel Castro. It often conducted experiments without the subject's knowledge or consent. In some cases, academic researchers were funded through grants from the CIA front organizations and were completely unaware that the CIA was where the funds were coming from or where their research was going to.
That's crazy.
So one of the like main doctors that I'm going to talk about who is involved in this, it's not clear if he knew that the CIA is where his money was coming from, but it is clear that he would have been performing these experiments regardless. So
That he would be what?
performing the experiments that he was doing regardless of where the funding came
Got
from.
it.
So he was just not a great person. So, well, that's not true. His intention was good. Methods, bad. We'll talk about him. So the project was initially attempted, like initial goal, in my opinion, not horrible. Not that part. This next part. The initial goal was to perfect a truth serum
Okay.
for using in interrogation of captured spies during the Cold War. That part, to me, fine. Not great,
Yeah.
but not every other thing that they did.
Yeah. Not evil.
Yeah. So it was also to explore other possibilities of mind control. Because they were like, well, if we're going to get people we're going to force people to tell the truth, we could force them to do other things.
Right.
So there was Subproject 54, which was the Navy's top secret perfect concussion program, which was supposed to use suboral frequency blasts to erase your memory. That program was never carried out,
Wow.
Oh,
but it was
that's
planned.
terrifying.
Wow.
Most MKUltra records were destroyed in 1973 by order of then CIA Director Richard Helms, so it has been difficult for investigators to gain a complete understanding of the more than 150 funded research subprojects sponsored by MKUltra and related CIA programs. MKUltra doesn't stand for or mean anything. MK was just the prefix given to these programs, and Ultra was just the word they picked out of the dictionary for this program. Like MK doesn't stand for anything. Ultra isn't all caps. Like, it's not an abbreviation. It's just the name. So the project began during a period of what English journalist Rupert Cornwell described as paranoia at the CIA, when the U.S. had lost its nuclear monopoly and fear of communism was at its height in this country. So those two things really put the Central Intelligence Agency into a huge state of paranoia as an organization. So, of course, they're going to be like, we need to do everything we can. We need to do everything we can to get all the information. So, CIA counterintelligence chief James Jesus Angleton believed that a mole had penetrated the organization at its highest levels.
Ooh.
And the agency poured millions of dollars into studies examining ways to influence and control the mind and enhance its ability to extract information from restraint subjects during interrogation. So that's kind of what the goals were and who was kind of up at the high points in this, who was kind of in charge.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about the testing
Okay.
itself. And this is kind of broken down into a couple of different sections as well, because there are a bunch of different testing that was done. So CIA documents suggest that they investigated chemical, biological, and radiological methods of mind control as part of MKUltra. They spent an estimated $10 million or more, which is roughly $87.5 million adjusted for inflation. During a hearing by the Senate Health Subcommittee, a testimony by the Deputy Director of the CIA stated that this was after this came out, this was a more recent testimony, stated that over 30 institutions and universities were involved in the experimentation program of testing drugs on unknowing citizens, quote, at all social levels, high and low, American citizens and foreign.
This feels, that's like statement kind of feels like the beginning of Ghostbusters when he's doing the like testing on the two.
Oh, he's doing his
shock test or whatever.
Yeah, the shock test.
I know it's far more sinister than that, but like that's what it feels like.
And you have to remember, this is before we get a lot of regulation on how we're doing clinical testings of different kinds. And it's one of those things that while medical, like drug specific testing was regulated earlier than psychological testing, it's really, really easy that the CIA could have been like, oh, it's psychological stuff. We're using drugs, but it's psychological.
Yeah.
So we can say that it's psych.
It's psych testing.
It's psych testing. So several of these tests involved the issuing of LSD to unaware subjects in social situations.
Yeah.
The Army was subject to the testing of LSD, which occurred in 3 different phases. The first phase included over 1,000 American soldiers who willingly volunteered for testing of chemical warfare experiments, but they still weren't really told exactly what they were being given.
Well, that hasn't changed.
Phase 2 had 96 volunteers who were dosed with LSD in evaluation of the possibility of intelligence uses of the drugs. So like, hey, can we use this to interrogate people, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And then the third phase was Project Third Chance and Project Derby Hat, which conducted experiments on 16 unwitting, non-volunteer subjects that, after receiving LSD, were interrogated as part of Operation Field Tests. So they weren't just given LSD, they were given this LSD in what they thought was the field. They thought they were deployed, and they were out doing military stuff, and were given this. So this was not done in a lab. This was not done at a base, like at a local, like at their normal place. They were out, supposed to be doing either field training or something out, and they were given these drugs and then interrogated as part of these field tests, operational field tests. So after retiring in 1972, Gottlieb dismissed his entire effort for the CIA's MKUltra program as useless. Files recovered in 1977 contained 700 pages of new information showing that the experiments had continued until he ordered the program halted on July 10th, 1972, shortly before his retirement. It was supposed to have stopped in 1963 after only 10 years. It continued for another 9, secretly, after that.
Oh my god.
Let's talk about LSD.
Woohoo!
Specifically in regards to these experiments. So, in 1938, LSD was isolated by Herbert Hoffman at the Sandoz Laboratory in Basel, Switzerland. The early directors of MKUltra became aware of the existence of LSD and sought to use it for mind control. In the early 50s, MKUltra director Gottlieb arranged for the CIA to buy the entire supply of LSD from this lab for $240,000, which in 2024 money, which is what I had in this article, was $4,227,079.
That still does not feel enough for that much
Still does
LSD.
not feel like enough for how potent LSD is.
This supply gave Gottlieb the ability to fulfill his experiment by spreading LSD to prisons, hospitals, institutions, clinics, and foundations in order to see how citizens would react to the drug without knowing exactly what was happening to them.
You
Bad.
shouldn't drug people.
That's bad.
Back to, you should never trip alone regardless.
Yeah.
Don't give people drugs, man.
Don't
that
give
they don't know what
people
they are.
drugs.
Don't give people drugs,
Because
and if you're gonna trip, don't trip by yourself.
If you're going to give people drugs, they need to know what you're giving them.
Yep.
Because what if they're allergic?
Or have taken something else.
Yeah.
Early CIA efforts focused on LSD-25, which later came to dominate many of MKUltra's programs. The CIA wanted to know if they could make Soviet spies defect against their will and whether the Soviets could do the same to the CIA's own operatives. So they're like, well, they're already doing it. You know, the entirety of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Well, they're already doing
They're
it, so we
already
need to be doing
so we
it.
have to also be doing that.
Right. Documents obtained from the CIA by John D. Marks under the Freedom of Information Act in 1976 showed that in 1953, the CIA considered purchasing 10 kilograms of LSD, enough for 100 million doses. The proposed purchase aimed to stop other countries from controlling the supply. Again, if they're doing it, we should do it so they can't do it. The document showed that the CIA purchased some quantities of LSD from that laboratory in Switzerland. Once MKUltra started, experiments included administering LSD to mental patients, prisoners, drug addicts, and sex workers, quote, people who could not fight back, end quote, as one agency officer put it. In one case, they administered LSD to a mental health patient in Kentucky for 174 days.
What the fuck?
They
In
also
a row?
Yeah. Yeah. They also administered LSD to CIA employees, military personnel, doctors, other government agents, and members of the general public to study their reactions. The aim was to find a drug that would bring about deep confessions or wipe a subject's mind and program them as a robot agent. Military personnel who received the mind-altering drugs were also threatened with court-martials if they told anybody about the experiment.
Of course they were.
LSD and other drugs were often administered without the subject's knowledge or informed consent, a violation of the Nuremberg Code that the U.S. had agreed to follow after World War II. Many veterans who were subjected to experimentations later sought legal and monetary reparations. We'll talk about that in a minute. In Operation Midnight Climax, which sounds dope as hell, but is really fucking sad.
That sounds
Dirty
nasty
as
hell.
fuck.
Yeah. But it's a cool name.
It is cool.
The CIA set up several brothels within agency safe
Yep.
houses in San Francisco to obtain a selection of men who would be too embarrassed to talk about what happened to them. The men were dosed with LSD, the brothels were equipped with one-way mirrors, and the sessions were filmed for later viewing and study.
Gross.
That's some
How
cuck
they-
shit.
How do they fuck under the influence of LSD?
That's insane.
In other experiments, where people were given we're gonna start over. In other experiments where people were given LSD without their knowledge, they were interrogated under bright lights with doctors in the background taking notes. They told the subjects that they would extend their trips if they refused to reveal their secrets. The people subjected to these interrogations were CIA employees, U.S. military personnel, and agents suspected of working for the Soviet bloc during the Cold War. Long-term debilitation and several deaths resulted from this.
Yeah.
Heroin addicts were bribed into taking LSD with offers of being given more heroin.
Can I loop back for just a second?
Yeah.
Imagine for a second.
Imagine, if you will.
Working for the CIA brothel. Be like, hi, I work for the CIA. What do you do?
Fuck.
I watch people fuck.
If you're a sex worker there, you're fucking
Oh, yeah, fair. Good
for the CIA.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't think they're getting paid.
Doesn't
They're
matter. You're
not getting
still
paid that much.
They're not being paid that much.
You're still fucking
Also,
for the
they
CIA.
may not know that they work for the CIA. A lot of this was
Yeah.
done without the knowledge of who they worked for.
Right. They may not have known that they were working at the CIA's brothel.
Yeah, like this to me sounds like it was run like a bad motel,
That's
and they may not have even known they were being watched.
I hate that.
Yeah, it's bad.
Icky.
Icky.
But they did cuck the CIA too. So
Yes.
That's funny.
So, the goal, the Office of Security within the CIA was like, oh, we'll use this for interrogations, but Gottlieb was like, what if we use it for covert operations?
Of course.
Since its effects were temporary, he believed it could be given to high-ranking officials and in this way affect the course of important meetings, speeches, etc. Since he realized there was a difference in testing the drug in a laboratory and using it in clandestine operations, he initiated a series of experiments where LSD was given to people in normal settings without warning. At first, everyone in technical services tried it. A typical experiment involved two people in a room where they observed each other for hours and took notes. As the experimentation progressed, a point arrived where outsiders were drugged with no explanation whatsoever, and surprise acid trips became something of an occupational hazard among CIA operatives. That's so funny. It's like, Jim gave me coffee. What's going to happen? Should I drink it? Do I drink it? I don't think I should drink this.
Do I
It's
trust
probably,
Jim?
It's probably got LSD in it. And then you like drink coffee that you poured yourself, and suddenly you're having a trip, and you're like, no, damn it, Jim was trying to save me from the coffee in my own office.
God damn it!
It's in the beans.
The beans. Fuck. That's it. Look,
It's not funny, but yes, it is. They're doing it to themselves.
That sucks and is horrible, but that's also fucking hilarious.
Right, like at least it's like you worked at the CIA and you knew this was happening. Quit. Don't work for the CIA.
Eat shit or drink shit or touch.
I don't know.
shit.
The general public wasn't really safe either.
Yeah.
No, I know, but my thing is like at the CIA, you know this is going on. You can at least be like, well,
But
I've had 4 acid trips this week. Or 4 LSD trips this week.
I shouldn't eat any more of the free breakfast that they've given us.
I shouldn't drink the office coffee or water or anything out of the vending machine.
I also think the idea of like being like, okay, I'm taking LSD and you're taking LSD, and we're writing notes on each other
While we're
on
tripping.
LSD. That's fucking hilarious.
It is funny. I think it would be even funnier if only one of them was given LSD, but no one knew which one. And
Yeah.
so they were just writing observations, and it's like, Johnson has a dragon for a head now? That's normal. Okay, writing that down on my notes. This is not funny, but it kind of is funny. Adverse reactions often occurred, such as an operative who received the drug in his morning coffee, became psychotic, and ran across Washington, D.C., seeing a monster in every car passing him.
Oh,
I'm sorry. You're right. It's
poor
not
buddy.
funny.
It's not funny,
That's funny though.
but it is funny. I'm going to briefly talk about this next thing, and then it gets its own section. So don't ask questions.
Okay.
We'll get to it later.
Got it.
The experiments continued even after Frank Olson, an Army chemist who had never taken LSD, was covertly dosed by his CIA supervisor and 9 days later plunged to his death from the window of a 13th-story New York hotel room, supposedly as a result of deep depression induced by the drug.
Yeah.
According to Stephen Kinzer, Olson had approached his superiors sometime earlier, doubting the morality of the project, and asked to resign from the CIA. Olson gets his own section.
Got
We
it.
talk about his shit at towards
Later.
the end. He gets his own section.
Okay.
Some subjects' participation was consensual, and in these cases, they appeared to be singled out for even more extreme experiments. In one case, seven drug-addicted African-American participants at the National Institute of Mental Health Addiction Research Center in Kentucky. That was a lot of words to make sure I said correctly.
Yeah.
Were given LSD for 77 consecutive days.
Fuck.
Again,
God
they
damn.
consented to being part of the experiment, but not to that happening to them.
Yeah.
They did not consent to being given LSD for 77 days. MKUltra's researchers later dismissed LSD as too unpredictable in its results. They gave up on the notion that LSD was the secret that was going to unlock the universe, but it still had a place in the cloak and dagger arsenal. By 1962, the CIA and the Army developed a series of super hallucinogens, such as the highly touted BZ, which was thought to hold greater promise as a mind control weapon. This resulted in the withdrawal of support by many academics and private researchers, and LSD research became less of a priority altogether. So we did all of that, and then went, yeah, it's not working. Something new, something different. Let's try
Try it
something
again.
else.
Try something new.
So that was just the LSD section. Now we're on to the other drugs section. It's only 2 paragraphs.
Oh, okay.
Another technique investigated was the intravenous administration of barbiturates into one arm and the amphetamines into the other.
Woo!
The barbiturates were released into the person first, and as soon as the person began to fall asleep, the amphetamines were released. Other experiments involved... that's it. That's the end of that statement. Other experiments involved heroin, morphine, temazepam, mescaline, psilocybin, scopolamine, alcohol, and sodium pentothal.
Jesus fuck.
I don't think all at the same time.
I hope not, or they'd be dead.
They'd be dead. That experiment is, what all can we give you before you die?
Yeah. How
Not a
many
lot of
things
any
can we
of
give you
that.
before your head explodes.
In
You
19
get one dose
You get
of all that,
one
and you're
dose.
dead.
One dose of all of this, and you go up or down or up or down or up or down or dead.
Dead.
That was really funny.
Up or down or up or down or up or down or
Dead.
Duck, 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 duck,
Goose.
dead.
MKUltra.
MKUltra. A 1955 MKUltra document details research objectives to identify drugs that could be used as cognitive enhancers, Sorry, my little sidebar thing popped up, and it was talking about Stonehenge for some reason.
Ah.
I moved my mouse too far, and it was like, you want to see
Stonehenge?
the news? Drugs that could be used as cognitive enhancers, disease mimetics, euphoriants without letdown, and agents to diminish ambition, among other uses. They're like, let's give this de-ambition drug to foreign leaders and see what happens. The extent of testing towards these subjects is unclear, given the deliberate destruction of most drug-related MKUltra files in 1973. That was the most dramatic glasses put back on in history.
You don't
All
have
right.
any kind of feelings.
And believe it or not, that's all we've got about other drugs, because we don't have very much documentation about it, because the CIA destroyed a lot of it. I kind of got a bunch of my information not from the CIA documents themselves,
Yeah.
because reading those sucks, because it's like,
They
oh,
do
did
They
you
do-
know? Did
does
you know
suck.
that the government decided that this specific program is not accessible by FOIA? This is protected from FOIA. You can't access this from FOIA. It's all been declassified now, so it's findable, but it's hard. You cannot do a Freedom of Information Act request and get this information. It's protected.
I don't like that.
I don't either. Anyway, let's talk about
Hey.
hypnosis. Hypnosis is the like interesting shit because that's like, hey, this is more our jam.
Yeah, it's a little bit more on
A
brand.
little bit more on brand. A lot of this is not on brand. This is one of those things that it's like I'm talking about it because it was the precursor to the Men Who Stare at Goats, right?
Yeah.
Like this led us to that.
Yeah.
Declassified MKUltra documents indicate that they studied hypnosis in the early 50s, so like early in the project is when they started doing hypnosis stuff. Experimental goals included creating hypnotically induced anxieties, hypnotically increasing the ability to learn and recall complex written matter, studying hypnosis and polygraph examinations, hypnotically increasing ability to observe and recall complex arrangements of physical objects, and studying relationship of personality to susceptibility to hypnosis. So we're going to break down each of those little things a little bit. So hypnotically induced anxieties is like, you can go to a hypnotherapist and they can help you get rid of something that you're worried about, hopefully.
Yeah.
That, but opposite.
It's the nightmare.
Yeah, it's that. Hypnotically increasing ability to learn and recall complex written matter. So the goal here is you take someone who can be easily perceived as a dummy,
Yeah.
you hypnotize them, giving them the ability to recall complicated data. You turn them into a spy, you send them to somewhere foreign.
Uh-huh.
They're an idiot, except for a trigger word that they can now read and remember everything on that piece of paper. They come home, they regurgitate that information. So then we got studying relations between hypnosis and polygraph examinations. So can you hypnotize somebody to pass a polygraph when they are fully lying?
Okay.
Hypnotically increasing ability to observe and recall complex arrangements of physical objects. Similar to the reading one, it's like, hey, can we hypnotize this guy that when he sees an airplane, he suddenly is able to remember exactly how many and what type of airplane are in this hangar. Then he can come home and tell us all about what the Russians are doing.
Yeah.
Kind of situation. And then the relationship between personality and susceptibility to hypnosis. Obviously, if you're going to be using a lot of hypnotism techniques, you're gonna want to know who's easy to hypnotize. So they're trying to figure out, like, is there like an easy, because it's the CIA, they do profiling, so it's like, is there an easy personality profile that we can put together that is susceptible to hypnosis versus not susceptible to hypnosis? Because they're going to want their like primary operatives to not be susceptible to hypnosis, because those are the ones that they're going to send to Russia, presumably, and they don't want the Russians to be able to hypnotize them.
Right.
And then they're going to want to be able to hypnotize the Russians that come here,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So they conducted some experiments with drug-induced hypnosis, because of course they did, and anterograde and retrograde amnesia while under the influence of such drugs. So they were trying to like
Induce.
induce different kinds of amnesia.
Interesting.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about Subproject 68, which is a bit of a doozy.
Oof.
The whole thing's a bit of a doozy.
This is
my
a
dude.
bit of a specific doozy. This is the guy who I was like,
The guy that threw himself off the building.
no.
Oh.
That's later. This is the guy at the very beginning that I was like, this is the guy who I don't think he cared if his money came from the CIA. He would have done this regardless.
Gotcha.
However, his initial intention, there is one sentence here that I'm like, oh, he had good intentions. Everything after that is atrocious.
Excellent.
Right? Like the Stanford prison experiment. If you
Bad.
don't know what that is, you should look it up. He had good intentions of his study. He wanted to learn about what happens to people when given power, that kind of thing. The execution
Very
is
bad.
why we have rules for how to do psychological
There are
experiments
now rules.
So like his intention, very positive.
Yeah.
His method,
Atrocious.
psychotic. Scottish
fantastic.
psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron was recruited to run tests in Canada after the CIA took interests in his experiments that he was already doing.
I see.
Cameron had hoped to correct schizophrenia
Oh.
by erasing existing memories and reprogramming the psyche. Now, that isn't great. It is the 50s, or it is the 60s at this point. So it's not a crazy thing to be like, oh, the way to correct schizophrenia is to erase the existing trauma that caused the schizophrenia, which was what we thought caused schizophrenia at the time, and reprogram that part of the psyche to not have that crack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is a hopeful and noble cause, I think. The goal of how can I help these people who have schizophrenia with my understanding of how schizophrenia works in 1964 is good. Everything after this sentence takes away any hope we had for this man being a good person.
Excellent.
So he commuted from Lake Placid, New York to Montreal every week to work at McGill University's Allen Memorial Institute and was paid $69,000 from 1957 to 1964 to carry out MKUltra experiments there, which were known as the Montreal experiments or Subproject 68. Those are the two different names for it. He also used LSD, but in addition to that, he experimented with various paralytic drugs and also used electroconvulsive therapy at 30 to 40 times the normal power. And this is when we start disliking Dr. Cameron. This is when we really solidify the dislike of Dr. Cameron.
Oh, God.
His, quote, psychic driving experiments consisted of putting a subject into a drug-induced coma for weeks at a time, up to 3 months in one specific instance,
What?
while playing tape loops of noise or simple statements. It's really bad.
For why?
To try and rewrite their psyche. He's trying to rewrite their memory, rewrite their brain.
They're just doing more trauma.
Correct. But at this point, he's doing MKUltra stuff. He's no longer trying to fix schizophrenia. This is what he was doing to try and fix schizophrenia, but he's not doing that anymore. Now he's just doing whatever the CIA tells him to do.
Yeah.
These experiments were typically carried out on patients who had entered the institute for minor problems, such as mild anxiety disorders and postnatal depression. Many were permanently debilitated after these treatments.
Yeah.
We're not going to call them treatments. After these experiments.
Yep.
Such consequences included incontinence, amnesia, forgetting how to talk, forgetting their parents, thinking their interrogators were their parents. Weird parent stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's doing kind of the opposite of what Alzheimer's does. Because Alzheimer's, you remember the old stuff and you don't remember the new stuff. This is making them forget the old stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it's forgetting the early memory. Because they're forgetting who their parents are and forgetting how to talk.
Yeah.
His work was inspired and paralleled by another psychiatrist who was also involved with the intelligence service, but not through MKUltra. And he was experimenting also without consent, also causing similar long-term damage. Sid Taylor, who was a researcher who was writing about this, stated that Cameron used Curair, I think is how you say it, to immobilize his patients during his research. After one test, he noted, although the patient was prepared by both prolonged sensory isolation, 35 days, and by repeated de-patterning, and although she received 101 days of positive driving, no favorable results were obtained.
That's bananas.
So we tortured this woman for 101 days.
For
and
nothing.
Nothing happened. Patients were tested in the radiotelemetry laboratory, which was built under Cameron's direction. Here, patients were exposed to a range of RF and electromagnetic signals and monitored for changes in behavior. It was reported that none of the patients sent to that lab showed any signs of improvement from whatever illness that they were in the institution for.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
Makes my brain hurt.
We're
Just like
skipping the next.
just like thinking about these poor people.
Oh, no, we're
like,
not. This next paragraph is important.
Like it makes it's hard to even believe that people like are willing and
Right.
able to just
Do that to
do this
another
to other
person.
people.
Right. And the crazy part of this is, like, a lot of these people are still alive.
Yeah.
And fucked up for this. In 1980, the Canadian investigative news program that fit the state interviewed 2 former patients who were among several of his ex-patients who were at that time suing the CIA. In her book, In the Sleep Room, The Story of the CIA Brainwashing Experiments in Canada, author Ann Collins explored the history of Cameron and Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute. This was made into a TV miniseries directed by Ann Wheeler in 1999 called The Sleep Room, which also dramatizes the lawsuit of these patients. The son of one of his patients noted in a memoir that other than Ed Broadbent and Sven Robinson, no Canadian MP brought up the issue in the House of Parliament. So, like, two guys went to Parliament and were like, hey, this is fucked up.
And everyone said, la, 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 la.
Right. And then we've got whether or not Cameron was aware that the funding for his experiments was coming from the CIA is unclear, but it has been argued that he would have carried out the exact same experiments if funding had come from a source without ulterior motives.
That's bananas.
Crazy.
Yeah. So then we have a section that I have entitled Double Secret Bad Experiments. In areas under American control in the early 1950s in Europe and East Asia, mostly in Japan, West Germany, and the Philippines, the CIA created secret detention centers, parentheses black sites, so that the U.S. could avoid criminal prosecution. The CIA captured people suspected of being enemy agents and other people deemed, quote, expendable to undergo various types of torture and human experimentation. The prisoners were interrogated while being administered psychoactive drugs and electroshocked and subjected to extremes of temperature, sensory isolation, and the like to develop a better understanding of how to control the human mind. Now we're done with the bummers, and we're going to talk about what happened when we found out about this.
Okay.
What happened?
What happened?
1973.
Okay.
Panic is already happening because of the Watergate scandal.
Yep.
CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all of the files to be destroyed. Right? It's like, shit's going on. We're already being investigated. Everyone's mad at us. Throw it all away.
Throw it away.
Burn it. Pursuant to this order, most documents regarding the project were destroyed.
Yep.
Destroyed.
Try again.
Making a full investigation of MKUltra literally impossible. A cache of some 20,000 documents survived the purge as they had been incorrectly stored in a financial records building and were discovered following a FOIA request in 1977. We're going to get to the FOIA shit in a minute. These documents were fully investigated during the Senate hearings of 1977. So that's after the FOIA request when we discovered these. In December of 74, the New York Times alleged that the CIA had conducted illegal domestic activities, including experiments on U.S. citizens during the 60s. That report prompted investigation by the United States Congress in form of the Church Committee and by a commission known as the Rockefeller Commission that looked into these illegal domestic activities of the CIA, FBI, and other intelligence agencies. So, like, the New York Times somebody went, hey, you need to look into this. And the New York Times went,
Say less.
I'm just going to say that it happened, and then the CIA is going to panic.
Yep.
And that's kind of what happened.
Wow.
Because the year before that was when the beginning of the panicking happened, right? So we've got Watergate happens. So the American public no longer trusts our intelligence agencies because of the Watergate scandal, right? And so 74, the year later, the New York Times is like, hey, has anyone looked into what the CIA's been doing? And Congress goes, you know what? We haven't. We should. And so they do. Summer of 75, the Congressional Church Committee, which is just called that, it has nothing to do with churches, reports, and the Presidential Rockefeller Commission report revealed to the public for the first time that the CIA and the Department of Defense had conducted experiments on both unwitting and cognizant human subjects as part of an extensive program to find out how to influence and control human behavior through the use of psychoactive drugs. They also revealed that at least one subject, Frank Olson, had died from this project. Much of what these two commissions learned about MKUltra was contained in a report prepared by the Inspector General's office in 1963 that had survived the destruction of the records ordered in 1973. It contained very little detail, though. Gottlieb, who had retired from the CIA 2 years previously and had headed MKUltra, was interviewed by the committee but claimed to have very little recollection of the activities
Bullshit.
of MKUltra.
That's called CYA, and you're a fucking liar.
The Congressional Committee investigating the CIA research, chaired by Senator Frank Church, hence why it's called the Church Committee, concluded that prior consent was obviously not attained from any of these subjects. The committee noted that the experiments sponsored by these researchers call into question the decision by the agencies to not fix guidelines for experimentation. Following the recommendation of the Church Committee, President Ford in 1976 issued the first executive order on intelligence activities, which, among other things, prohibited experimentation with drugs on human subjects except with the explicit informed consent in writing and witnessed by a disinterested party of each and every human subject. So he's like, you cannot perform experiments on people without their explicit informed consent in writing with a witness who is not related. So that's good. 77 is when the hearing is held. Further looks into MKUltra. That's when they find that 20,000. They have that 20,000 page document that survived the destruction. It deals with the financing of MKUltra, so it doesn't have a ton of the info, but we can see like, oh, they were funding this stuff in Canada. They were funding this project, and then those other projects have their documentation in other places that we were able to. That's where we were able to get a lot of this information. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the death of Frank Olson. So this is really early into the project that this happens, and they still continue doing the project.
Wow.
That's why this is such a big deal in a lot of the documentation, is like they know that this death in November of 1953
was directly tied.
which is only 6-7 months after it starts.
Yeah.
7 months after it starts, they know this is directly related. So in 1953, a few days before his death, Frank Olson quit his position as acting chief of Special Operations Division at Detrick, Maryland, later Fort Detrick, because of several moral crises concerning the nature of the biological weapons research that he was doing. His concerns included, but were not limited to, the development of assassination materials used by the CIA use of biological warfare materials in covert operations, experimentation with biological weapons in populated areas, collaboration with former Nazi scientists under Operation Paperclip, LSD mind control research, and the use of psychoactive drugs during terminal interrogations under a program codenamed Project Artichoke, which was the predecessor to MKUltra. So that's just some of his concerns. Okay. So there is a incident that happened a little bit before this in Europe. I can't remember exactly where it was. That was a mass poisoning that happened that has been deemed to have been because of now I'm not going to remember what it is. It's the thing that you get from bad flour.
Oh,
It's not cholera.
I know it's not salmonella. Nope.
No, I'm going to Google it really quick. I forgot to write this part down because I was waffling on whether or not I was going to talk about it. Ergot. It's ergot poisoning. Okay. So it was in France. This occurred in France in 1951. So this is 2 years before MKUltra starts, but it's during the predecessor Project Artichoke, which Olson worked on. Allegedly, this incident is connected. There has been no proof that this incident is connected to Project Artichoke at all. It has been alleged, and his specific issue of experimentation with biological weapons in populated areas is why a lot of people think that he was connected and MKUltra was connected with this mass poisoning in France. It was determined to be caused by ergot poisoning, which is a natural thing that can happen in bread.
Yeah.
Flour can have this issue. It's even more common in rye flour. And basically what was happening was this place in France was having a flour shortage, a like normal white flour shortage. And so they were having to cut their flour with rye flour. and this one guy's bread was
Bad.
killing people, was poisoning people. And so they were trying to figure out, like, what the connection was between him and these other places that didn't have the problem. Like, what did he do that they didn't do? And they ruled out everything but the flour, because it's like water, salt, and yeast was all coming from the same place. His flour was coming from the same place. The only thing that he did was, instead of cutting his flour with rye flour, he cut it with bean flour. And the bean flour was the, like, question mark. And that's where they think the ergot came in, was in this bean flour.
Uh-huh.
However, allegedly, the CIA put something in that bean flour.
Huh.
And it was this biological weapons testing in this populated area in France that was like, we're just going to see what happens. However, this is all allegedly. Like, and I'm not saying allegedly to protect the CIA. I'm saying allegedly because there is no evidence that this is true.
Yeah.
It is truly just something that somebody went, that's weird that that happened around the same time that this guy says that they were doing
And
experimentations.
It could be nothing.
It could be nothing. It could just be there was an ergot issue.
Yeah, it could be a freak accident.
Right. So
Sometimes the weird shit is just weird
yeah,
shit.
sometimes there's just a coincidence, but also sometimes the CIA is involved.
Right.
Right. And because we do not have documents that actually talk about what they were doing, all we have is what they were funding. We don't know.
Yeah.
Because they destroyed everything. So, November of 1953, Olson was given LSD without his knowledge or consent as part of a CIA experiment and died after falling from a 13-story window a week later. A CIA doctor assigned to monitor him claims to have been asleep in another bed in the New York City hotel room when Olson fell to his death. In 53, his death was described as a suicide that had occurred during a severe psychotic episode. The CIA's own internal investigation concluded that the head of MKUltra, Sidney Gottlieb, had conducted the LSD experiment on Olson with his prior knowledge, although neither Olson nor the other men taking part of the experiment were informed as to the exact nature of the drug until 20 minutes after it was ingested.
Oh my God.
The report further suggested that Gottlieb was nonetheless due a reprimand, as he had failed to take into account Olson's already diagnosed suicidal tendencies, which might have been exacerbated by the LSD. 1975, Olson's family received a $750,000 settlement from the government and a formal apology from President Ford and then CIA Director William Colby, though their apologies were limited to informed consent issues concerning Olson's ingestion of LSD. We're sorry he took it without knowing what it was. In 1977, so 22 years after this man's death, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and Committee on Human Resources wrote, given the CIA's purposeful destruction of most records, its failure to follow informed consent protocols with thousands of participants, and the uncontrolled nature of these experiments, the lack of follow-up data, the full impact of MKUltra's experiments, including deaths, may never be known. In 1994, Olson's body was exhumed, and cranial injuries indicated that Olson had been knocked unconscious before he exited the window.
So he got chucked.
Meaning the forensic evidence conflicted with the former official version of events by the CIA, and the medical examiner changed the manner of death to homicide.
What?
Motherfucker got chucked out of the window.
He was defenestrated. We have a word for that. We have a word for throwing someone out a window. It's defenestration. And poor Olson was thrown out of a window. At least he wasn't awake when he was thrown out of the window.
Oh, yeah.
At least he wasn't awake.
At least he wasn't awake. But the medical examiner, thank God, did change the manner of death to homicide.
Yeah.
Cause of death is still blunt force trauma, I
Yeah.
assume is what you put for falling out of window.
Well, it's
Actually, it probably says defenestration as the cause of death.
Yeah.
In 2021, nope. Earlier than that. About 20 years earlier than that. 2001, and earlier. The family disputes the official version of events, maintaining that Frank Olson was murdered because, especially in the aftermath of his LSD experience, he had become a security risk who might divulge state secrets associated with highly classified CIA programs, about many of which he had direct personal knowledge.
Yeah.
November of 2012, the Olson family filed suit against the U.S. government for the wrongful death of Frank. In 2013, the case was dismissed because of the previous settlement.
Yeah, because they were paid $750,000.
Because they already did that previous settlement.
Yeah.
Because of the LSD experiment, it was deemed that...
It's been taken care of.
Right. The U.S. District Judge James Bosberg wrote, "While the court must limit its analysis to the four corners of the complaint, the skeptical reader may wish to know that the public record supports many of the allegations in the family's suit, far-fetched as they may sound." So he basically said, I can't say anything more about this than the piece of paper that I've got about this case. But I can tell you this is fucked up and everything about it is fucked up, is basically what that translates to from legalese. Like, he's saying, we're dismissing this case because of the existing settlement, and that's just the long and short of it kind of thing. It's like,
That's what I have to do as a
I
judge.
have to, they've already sued, right? Like, they've already have this settlement. So
Yeah.
suing in this case is like, well, you were already paid out for the wrongful death of your family member.
Yeah.
You can't sue again for that same thing.
Yeah, you can't sue again for the same death.
Right.
Like, even if it was incorrect the first time.
Correct. You were still given a settlement for that death.
Yeah.
For that family member, which is a bummer. But he's like, public record supports the allegations, even the crazy ones. So now we're going to talk about a couple of documented people who were tested on, and some people who were allegedly subjects of MKUltra, and then we're going to end with just a bummer of a fucking quote from the guy who was
Killed
running
himself?
it. No, not the guy who killed himself. Who didn't kill himself. He was murdered.
Who was
The
thrown
guy
out
who
the
was
window.
silenced by the CIA. Frank Olson. No, I wish we had a quote from him. That would be great. No, we
That'd
have
be
a
cool.
quote from fucking Gottlieb or whatever the fuck his name is.
Okay.
So I'll also, before I get into the confirmed test subjects and alleged test subjects,
Yeah.
I do need to say that it is alleged that Jim Jones of Jonestown was an experimenter as part of MKUltra.
Experimentor and experimentee.
Experimenter. He was running, allegedly, part of that cult was MKUltra experiments.
Which one is that?
Jonestown.
Kool-Aid.
The
Okay.
Flavor Aid one.
Yeah.
It's not Kool-Aid. Don't besmirch the name of Kool-Aid in this way. They use discount.
It's the Flavor Aid.
The Flavor Aid cult. The original mass
the
suicide
OG mass suicide cult.
which is, I think it's called the People's Temple, was what it was called.
Something like that.
And
it was
they
in,
killed
like-
a bunch of people.
Okay.
Nope, that was in America. No,
No, they
it was
moved.
in
It was
Africa.
originally in America, and then they moved out of
People's Temple.
People's Temple. Yeah, they moved out of the U.S. It's not super important because it's just alleged. We don't know because, again, we don't know much.
Right. We don't know for a fact, but
But wouldn't be surprised. So these are some confirmed subjects. We've got a little bit of information about each of these. Allen Ginsberg first took LSD in an experiment on Stanford University's campus where he could listen to records of his choice. He chose a Gertrude Stein reading, a Tibetan mandala, and Richard Wagner. He said the experience resulted in, quote, a slight paranoia that hung on all my acid experiences through the mid-60s until I learned from meditation how to disperse that. So doing this initial experiment fucked him over for having any good acid trips for a very long time, apparently.
That's crazy.
He became an outspoken advocate for psychedelics in the 1960s, and after hearing suspicions that the experiment that he initially was involved in was CIA funded, wrote, "Am I, Allen Ginsberg, the product of one of the CIA's lamentable, ill-advised, or triumphantly successful experiments in mind control?" Which one am I?
Did I come from the bad one or a good one?
Just the guy who liked to do drugs.
You know, pop off, King.
Ken Kesey, sure, author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Oh.
is said to have volunteered for MKUltra experiments involving LSD and other psychedelic drugs at the Veteran Administration Hospital in Menlo Park while he was a student at nearby Stanford University. They just keep throwing Stanford in here. Stanford loves to give people weird experiments.
Stanford students fucking love doing weird shit, I guess.
Kesey's experiences while under the influence of LSD inspired him to promote the drug outside of the context of MKUltra's experiments, which influenced the early development of hippie culture.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Harold Blower was an American tennis player who died from injections of... I really should have looked at how to say this drug. There are so many syllables.
I believe
Methylene dioxyamphetamine. Okay, we're good. That was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. Injections of 3,4 methylene dioxyamphetamine in the New York State Psychiatric Institute, which he had voluntarily checked into due to his depression following his divorce.
Oh.
So he died because of an injection from this weird-ass drug when he checked into the psychiatric institute because he was depressed after getting divorced. So that's a bummer. Sorry, these aren't all fun. The first two are fun. The later ones are...
I was like, those first two were
that
fun.
one's fun.
That was good.
Robert Hunter was an American lyricist, singer-songwriter, translator, and poet, best known for his association with Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. Along with Ken Kesey, Hunter was said to be an early volunteer in MKUltra at Stanford University. Stanford test subjects were paid to take LSD, psilocybin, and mescaline, then report on their experiences. These experiences were creatively formative for Hunter. Quote, sit back. Picture yourself swooping up a shell of purple with foam crests of crystal.
Christ.
Drops soft, nigh, they fall into the sea of morning. Creep, very softly, mist. And then, sort of cascade, tinkly bell-like. Must I take you by the hand? Ever so
Tinkly
slowly
bell
type.
like.
Then conglomerate suddenly into a peal of silver, vibrant, uncomprehendingly, blood-singingly, joyously resounding bells. By my faith, if this be insanity, then for the love of God, permit me to remain insane.
Jesus
Was
Christ.
this a Stanford student?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Of fucking course.
Some
it was.
people just like taking drugs.
Some people just like taking drugs.
And we've
But
got,
Jesus fuck, man.
so now we've got some allegedly
Allegedly?
subjects. Whitey Bulger.
What a name.
Have you never heard of Whitey Bulger?
No.
Oh, he's like a mob boss.
Yeah. Like he was like one of Al Capone's like dudes.
He's a guy. He's an organized crime boss.
That's
Allegedly, he
crazy.
was subjected to weekly injections of LSD while he was in prison in Atlanta in '57.
Crazy.
Ted Kaczynski, do you know that name?
Nope.
Unabomber.
Ah,
you know that
yeah, I
name.
do know
Okay.
that.
Allegedly was a voluntary psychological psychological study subject.
Damn.
As a sophomore at Harvard, he participated in a study described by author Alston Chase as, quote, purposefully brutalizing psychological
Shit.
experiment led by Harvard psychologist Henry Murray. Allegedly, that was connected to MKUltra. I don't even remember how to say this name. These are all famous people.
Spell it.
Is it Sirhan or is it Sirhan?
I think it's Saran.
Because it's from Sirhan's attorney Lawrence Teeter believed that Sirhan was, quote, operating under MKUltra mind control techniques when he assassinated RFK, the OG RFK.
Yeah.
Charles Manson has been tied to MKUltra by author Tom O'Neill, beginning with his time in prison when Manson took part in drug-induced psychological experiments run by the federal government. Such experiments hypothetically could have been continued through his ongoing connection to the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic in San Francisco once he was out of prison in '67.
Prison.
Prison.
You knew it was coming.
I did. So those are some alleged suspects, which are way like just silly,
That's
right?
crazy.
The actual confirmed test subjects are all just silly little guys, except for that one guy who died, which is
Yeah.
a bummer. So now we have a quote from
The guy.
Goldblatt. What is his name?
Gottlieb.
Gottlieb.
Gottlieb. Goldblab.
God.
Quote.
bless.
The results of everything told us that the money expended, the effort expended, the security risk involved, when you add everything up, it was probably not a high payoff program.
Obviously.
Okay, I'm done.
That it?
That's it. What'd you learn? How do you feel?
Everything. I feel
Are you
yucky.
sad?
I feel
I'm
yucky.
sad.
I feel yucky.
I don't think I asked you guys what you knew at the beginning of this.
I didn't know
just launched
anything.
it into
It's
it because I
fine.
didn't. I kind of wanted to just get it over with.
Yeah, so like what I knew was like, yeah, weird government shit, like they were giving people drugs. But like damn. The depth of how bad it was like is crazy.
I
And
learned
now we all
everything.
know it. Now we all know that.
Now we all know.
Now we all know how bad it was. And we don't. We don't even know how bad it was because we don't have the documentation.
Yeah.
And I realized that I actually took out the part about the FOIA shit because it made me so mad. But it was in like the 90s that somebody was trying to get this other documentation. And it was like, no, because we already declassified stuff. You can find it. And it's like, right, I want the other shit.
I want the rest of it.
I want the rest of it that didn't get burned that you've said you have. I would like it. And they were like, no, this is protected from FOIA. You can't access it.
How do they make that decision?
The court just decided.
We should try again.
I don't think it's going to go well for us. At
No,
this time of year.
it's protect, like you can't do it again. Like it will get automatically denied because of the court decision that information is protected. If we figure out what they specifically requested, there might be a way to request other similar documents that weren't part of that initial court case. But because of the way that court case works, it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
anything requesting these documents is automatically denied. But anyway, so did you? How are we feeling? Other than bad, because I know we're not feeling great. It wasn't a delightful, fun, happy.
I mean,
fun
you
time
did a
time.
good job for it
Thank
being a
you.
shitty topic. You did
Yeah,
a
And
great
like
job.
it's a shitty topic, but like again, it is fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It is the
because
kind of stuff that like I am into. It's like, oh, I do want to know more about that. Like that's
Right.
fucking crazy.
And what's crazy to me is like it feels, it feels so long ago. You're like, oh, it was the 50s or oh, it was the 60s. My mom was
Those
alive.
people are still alive.
My mom was born when this was supposed to have stopped, and then it continued for another 9 years.
God.
And even then, it's like, did it stop? Right? Because it's
Right.
like, did it stop? Did it just change names? Did it change names at all? Like, is it still going on?
Did they just shift focus to something different?
Right, because we know that they shifted focus. We know
We
that
know they
were
tried
doing
other
remote,
drugs.
They were doing remote viewing stuff, and they were doing remote viewing under the influence of drugs as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so we know they shifted focus there. Did they stop with this focus entirely,
Right.
or no? And we don't know because it's the CIA.
That's insane.
Anyway, I think that's all you need to know about MKUltra.
At
Probably
least for
ever.
now.
Unless we
new
get
shit
more
comes
information
out.
that comes out. Sorry, everyone, for me having 2 bummer episodes in a row of my topics. But that's all I've got for you. We'll see you next week. Actually, you know what? It's a bummer. It's time. Make sure you hit all of the buttons.
Hit buttons.
If you want less bummer content, please hit all of the buttons. Hit follow, hit subscribe, give us a rating, give us a review, tell us your thoughts, give us comments, go to our Discord, join
Write us
it.
a message. Tell us how big of a bummer this episode
tell us
was.
how mad you are at me for talking about this. Did you make it to the end of this episode, or was it too much of a bummer? Go to Instagram, like the Instagram post about this episode, and then tell us how mad you are in the comments on Instagram. And then get on Facebook, do the same thing there. Then go to TikTok, pick any TikTok, and say the CIA posted this. Or say tpifw are government drones, something along those lines.
Something.
On a TikTok of
Make up a
ours.
new government conspiracy theory in our comment section.
Remember, for us, it's December 14th, 2025. For you, it is, I don't know, March.
Yep.
I will forget that I told you this. Except for I won't, because I will have edited this the day before you hear it.
Christopher will not recall that we
I
had
will
this
not
discussion.
recall that we had this discussion at all.
Yep. That's it. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is for weirdos.
Are you a weirdo?
Thursdays are for the phenomena.